Hey guys, it's Julian. Today we are going to be talking about making techier, deep, minimal house in the style of James Dexter and Sidney Charles. As usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so here's the project file. We're at 125 BPM, actually a little bit slower for this more like deep, minimal style. But it gives it, I mean, it's not a huge difference, you know, between 127 BPM and 125, especially if a DJ is already playing a mix at, say, like 127 or 128, you know, a more standard tempo for the style. They're probably just going to make your track a little bit faster, or like play it at the beginning of the mix or something like that. But yeah, you know, 125 just gives it a little bit more flow. And the first thing that we have here is this first chord stab, which sounds like this. So the MIDI for this one's pretty simple. As you can see, it's playing chords, but I'm just using two notes here. We're just using D and G, and then G down here as well. So it's literally just D. The root note, the key that we're in is D minor here, so the root note of that key would be D, and then G, which is the fifth. And then the way I'm doing the chord here is we're actually using this Ableton chord device. So what's happening is you can see we have 1 plus 7 and minus 5. So basically this is just adding a fifth to everything. But yeah, it kind of just creates that like chord. And it creates it in a more like stabby sort of way. You know, this is a lot more like, you know, we have that chord across every note that we play. So it's going to give you a little bit more of like a sort of dancey feel like that. But yeah, so I got that, and then this operator patch here is the chord that you're hearing. So this is just 3 sine waves doing some FM, and then you'll see we have the chorus pitches set like that. This first one is actually the highest one. And there's also a bit of detuning happening, and then we just have this bandpass filter here with an envelope, and it's got a little bit of the sine shaper. And then we just have some chorus and some echo. So you can hear that echo. Is what gives it the space, and the chorus kind of spreads it out a bit. And then finally, we have a drum bus, which is just giving it a bit more fatness. This really helps to make the chords sound like juicy. And then we have a high pass filter. And the next thing here is the second chord stab. So this is made in a really similar way, because you can see it's just D, and then D an octave up. And then what we're doing here is we have this chord here, which you can see this one is doing a bit more of a detailed chord. So the last one was just the fifth, and then the fifth an octave down, but this one is actually doing a minor 7th chord, because you can see we have a minor 3rd, which is this +3, we have a 5th, which is this +7, and then we have a minor 7, which is the +10. So yeah, we're just creating, you know, a little bit more detailed chord. I like this, like when you have one chord, maybe where it's like just the root note in the 5th, one chord where it's like a minor 7th like this, and then I'm pretty sure this last chord here is also a minor 7th. But yeah, just kind of having those different styles of chords, I think really mixes it up. This one is also an operator patch. However, this one is literally just one square wave, so it's just a square wave. And then I have that going through a bandpass filter, which you can see also has an envelope, so that's how we get that quick sort of like whoop. And then I have the OSR setting on that. So this just gives it a little bit more of like a grungy sort of texture. I have the filter drive turned up. Then we just have a bit of chorus and a really short reverb. This is a great technique with these chord stabs. Like if you want to give them some space like this and kind of make it, you know, have like some space in the mix, but you don't want the reverb to be too much, just shorten the sides like this and then use a short decay time. And there you go. And then I just have a drum bus. And yeah, and then we have this third chord. So this one is, again, just playing one note, D, and then we have that chord, which you can see is the same setting, actually, as it was on the last chord. So, again, just a minor 7th chord. And then this one's made using 2 sine waves here. You can see it's just one, and then another one, an octave up. Z-tuned a little bit. And you can see I have a little bit of attack on the first one, too. Because this one's meant to kind of like... Yeah, and then we have this low pass filter as well, so we get the envelope turned up on that one. And then same deal, just lots of attack to make it really like fade into the sound. Because if I turn off the filter, you can hear it's actually a pretty harmonically rich sound. And then the idea is that it's fading into that, and then we get it. And yeah, then we just have a bit of chorus, another really short reverb, just like that last stab, and then a bit of drum bass, and that's it for the chord stabs. So yeah, you know, you just want to make sure you have like maybe 2 or 3 here. You could get away with 1 in some tracks, but you have to have some kind of other thing like a vocal or something like that. Like, I think having a few different ones here is really important because you can hear, you know, just these 3 things playing on their own. It's creating a lot of energy for the track, so it's adding a lot. Then we have the low end. So this is this kick. So you can see just like a super fat, punchy 909 kick. This is a new one that I just made that I haven't shown you guys before yet, actually. And yeah, this is the type of kick you want. Like I said, just like this fat 909 style kick. Super punchy. Very like boomy, but still tight. And then we just have a bit of saturation on that. And then we have the bass line. So yeah, it's just a 2-note bass line, you know, really simple. You don't want anything too crazy because, like, keep in mind, we also have these chords happening. Plus all this percussion and hi-hats and stuff. So it's like, the bass line is really just meant to be like a big, huge, low source of power in your track. So you want that to be pretty steady. So just doing 2 notes like this works really well. So yeah, you can see like it's just D and then G. It's the same thing as like with the chord stabs actually. But yeah, like the thing is also is like when you're making a simple 1-note bass line, then what happens is it becomes about, you know, it becomes less about like, oh, how many notes can you put in, where can you go musically, and it becomes more about like how effective can you make each note and what can you really do. So like, for example here, notice how in the first half of the bass line, it goes boom dum boom dum. But then in the second half, it's just boom dum dum. Like you get that little bit of space before the next bass note. If you listen to it in the mix, you can hear that. It's kind of like that. Like there's that little difference there. And that little tiny difference of literally just like 1/16th note of space can make so much difference in the track. And that's really what we're playing with here with minimal house. It's not about creating the biggest possible crazy track. It's about like what cool things can you do by taking away things rather than adding things. Then for the bass sound, it's a simple analog patch. So this is just a sine wave with a saw wave. I've actually never made one of these basses this way before on this channel, so this is a new technique, but this works really well. The idea is that the sine wave is kind of like the dominant force. Like if I turn that off, you can hear it's missing a lot. That's really like that deep subby note. But then the saw wave just adds that little bit of like a pluck and a little bit of girth to the sound. Because we're going into this low pass filter, so if I turn that off, yeah, then you can hear the saw. But you know, it just kind of gives it like something a little bit more. And it's also kind of like, you know, the saw wave is just the start of the sound. That's like the pluck. But then the sine wave is sort of like the body of the sound. So it's like the 2 oscillators coming together. And the amp envelope set like that. Then we just have some drum bass, which you can see is actually pretty strong, you know. You do want a really fat bass in this style. And then we just have an EQ here, which is just cutting a bit of room out for the kick and boosting the lows. And yeah, something I'll talk about here too with the low end is like, it's really important to make sure that your kick and bass are kind of peaking in different areas. And what I mean by this is if you look at the kick, so you see how on the spectrum here, the kick is mostly happening in this range around 100 hertz. But then if we put the spectrum on the bass, you'll see the bass is mostly happening like right below that. And it goes a little bit into there. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, of course, exact every time, but you can see like, you know, it's not just the mixing. It's not because we have a million EQs on these. Like, obviously this EQ here is helping, but it's really just like supplementing the fact that these sounds just work well together. And that's really what you want to shoot for. It's not just, oh, like, you know, can I make a huge sound that's going to clash with the kick, but then fix it later? Just trying to make sounds that aren't going to clash with the other sounds, essentially. And then you're going to have a very, like, dynamic mix that's going to feel full. And you can see we actually don't even have any processing on these because, you know, it didn't really need the group processing this time, you know. It still hits pretty nicely without it. And that's another thing, like, if you just have, like, a fat bass line and a fat kick, you're not going to need as much stuff, or even anything in this case. Then we have the percussion. So the first thing is just the clap. You know, it's just this nice, mid-rangey, very punchy clap like this. Kind of shorter as well, you know, it's just a quick. Then we have this click, which I'll play you like all of this stuff together because it's really all working together. So the way I'm looking at this, it's kind of like two groups of percussion. We have this click and then the snare and then this little percussion down here where if you listen, you'll notice. I'll play it with the hi-hat so you can hear. Here it's like. So these three elements are creating a little groove together. And they're all playing off of each other. So that's the thing you want to keep in mind really here is like, it all needs to play off of itself. Like it can't just be, you know, 5 different percussions just to have them. It's a matter of like, 3 of them are going to play off of each other. Then these other 2 down here are kind of playing off of each other as well. This tom and then this 808 tom where we get like a, you know, that call and response there with the ba-do, ba-do. But then you play it all together. And it's all grooving off of each other. So that's what you want. You want to create little subgroups like that where like there's maybe 3 elements grooving together. And then all the percussion when it comes together should be grooving together as well. And it's really like not that hard. You know, you just need like good sounds like this. Like if you want these ones, link at the top of the description. But like you just kind of program them so it's not too much, you know, it's not filling up every single millisecond of space. But it's happening very frequently, and then it's filling in its own groove. And then on the group of percussion here, it's just a little bit of drum bass, so here's without that. And with it, you can hear what that does, you know. It's really fattening that up. And making it more even. Then we have the hi-hats. So as you can hear, the hi-hats are pretty sparse. You know, you really don't want too much like stuff with these, like with these particular styles of this sound, because all the percussion's really doing that. And then the hi-hat is just with the little tambourines coming in here and there. So for the main hi-hat, it's actually 2 layers because we have, that's the whole thing. But what it's doing is it's this open hi-hat, which you can see I shortened a little bit. You definitely, like, you always want to do this kind of like shorten your hi-hats a little bit. And then it's a closed hi-hat underneath it. Which you can hear is really just adding the punch because this one on its own, it works, but it has a lot of body to it, but it's a little bit soft. It doesn't have that, like, on the start of the sound. So then you put this closed hi-hat on. And there we go. And I'll show you the difference too. Like, here's the whole mix with just the open hi-hat. And then both. So there you go. You can hear what's happening there. Like, you don't always notice it when you're just hearing them both together. But without it, it doesn't really have as much groove. It doesn't make you bob your head as much. And then the tambourine. You know, it's just this nice, really bright tambourine sample here, just playing a few extra notes. And the thing is, like, you can hear this completely, even with all the percussion happening. You can hear each individual hit, and that's what you want to shoot for. And that's a combination of good programming, because obviously, you know, it's not happening too much in the mix, so when it does happen, it's kind of like this little shot of high end that you can very clearly hear. And it's also sample selection, because if you notice, all the percussion is in the mid-range for the most part. Like, if I pull up a spectrum on this, let's see. yeah, like it's all pretty much in the mid-range. But obviously this tambourine is very much in like just the bright high end. So it's like if you choose sounds that are going to fit together, it's just like I was saying with the kick and bass. You don't have to do that much because they're just going to work just because of the sounds that they are. And yeah, then on the group of hi-hats, we just have a bit of saturation and EQ. So this is why I like to separate the hi-hats from the rest of the percussion these days, is because typically you'll notice the percussion drum bus is pretty hard. If we put that on these hi-hats, it wouldn't work as well. You know, it would kind of make them too crunchy. So we're just kind of saturating these a little bit softer, but still adding that punch and fatness. And then the EQ also is cutting out a lot of low end, which we may not want to cut out that much on the percussion, but with the hi-hats it works well, as well as it's just doing that nice high-end boost to make it all work really well together and really sharp. And yeah, so that is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video. It's available right at the top of the description. It's a really great way to support me if you guys have been enjoying these videos. You know, not making a whole lot just with YouTube, but with the sample packs and different stuff like this, I'm able to keep going and keep creating new content for you guys every day so we can all keep learning about how to make this style of music. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for watching and for the support. I love you all from the deepest bottom of my heart. It really means so much, all the support lately. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow with another video.